You had always been meticulous, proud of your focus and efficiency, but lately something gnawed at you. A flicker of unease distracted your mind at the worst moments. During presentations, when reviewing reports, even when sending emails. Jungkook noticed immediately. His eyes lingered a second too long as you fumbled with your notes. He tilted his head, sharp and calculating. Something is off, he said, stepping into your workspace. His voice was calm, but there was an edge that made the hairs on your neck stand up. Are you distracted? You blinked, heart skipping. No, sir, just a bit tired, that's all. You stammered, trying to steady the tremor in your voice. He narrowed his eyes. Tired, huh? From what? His tone was mild, but the way he leaned in slightly made it clear he expected the truth. You hesitated, knowing you couldn't admit the real reason. His secretary had been subtly threatening you for weeks. You swallowed. Just personal things, you said. Across the office, you caught the secretary watching, smirking, the corners of his lips curled in a way that screamed malice, his eyes daring you to react. Jungkook's gaze flicked to him, a shadow crossed his face, subtle but undeniable. His jaw tightened. Not on my watch, he muttered under his breath. Later, as he tried to get a quick coffee outside the office, the secretary appeared, leaning casually against the counter near the machine. His grin was smug, confident, and predatory. Funny, I thought someone like you would know better than to slip up. You turned to face him, your posture straight, eyes sharp. I don't slip up, you said evenly, and I don't respond to threats. He chuckled darkly. Oh, really? Let me remind you. You work for me in this company too. One wrong move and. One wrong move? You interrupted, stepping closer, matching his sneer with one of your own. I'm not scared of you. You think your little threats can control me. Think again. I answer to the boss, and he doesn't tolerate this kind of behavior. You met his gaze without looking away, letting the silence speak louder than any argument. Inside your mind raced, cataloging every threat, every sinister smirk, every manipulative word, evidence. You were collecting evidence, silently, patiently waiting for the right moment to expose him. Careful, he whispered, leaning just enough to imply control. Don't make me angry. I could ruin you before anyone even notices. You felt the tension, the danger, but you didn't move, didn't speak. One small gesture, one word, and he could twist it. Claim it was insubordination. You weren't about to give him that power. Instead, you sipped your coffee slowly, meeting his stare with the quiet assurance of someone who had a plan, someone who knew when to strike and when to wait. The smirk faltered slightly at your silence, but he masked it, taking a step back. We'll see how long your little act lasts, he muttered, then turned, leaving only the faint scent of his calling lingering. You exhaled slowly, but your heart was racing, not from fear, but from the thrill of knowing you weren't beaten. You had hold your ground, play the patient game, and when the time came, he wouldn't see it coming. The following week, Jungkook found himself watching you more closely than he intended. At first, it was casual, small observations while passing by your desk, but the more he looked, the more he notices patterns that didn't sit right. You were always punctual, efficient, and quick to respond, except when Bran was involved. If Bran walked into the room, your posture stiffened. If his voice carried across the office, your head stayed down, eyes locked on your screen, and when Bran lingered near Jungkook's office, you suddenly found a reason to stay at your desk instead of delivering files in person. Jungkook tested it one morning. Bring these reports to my office in 10. He told you. His tone was casual. Yes, of course, sir. You replied with a small smile, but when he glanced toward the glass walls of his office and saw Bran already inside, standing by his desk with a coffee, He also noticed you hesitated before turning away. 10 minutes passed, then 15, you didn't come. When he stepped out, you were at your desk rearranging papers that clearly didn't need rearranging. I thought I asked for those reports. He said, voice steady but eyes sharp. You didn't look up right away. I was making sure everything was complete. You said, pushing the folder toward him without meeting his gaze. He took it slowly, studying your face. You could have brought them in earlier. Brian doesn't bite. At that, you finally looked up, but your expression was unreadable. I know. You murmured too quietly for anyone but him to hear. Jungkook's brows furrowed. You weren't lying exactly, but you weren't telling the truth either. Over the next few days, he started to notice more. The way you always kept your phone face down when Brian walked past. The way you avoided the break room if Brian was there. The way your laugh, the one he had overheard a dozen times before, was completely absent when Brian was anywhere nearby. One afternoon during a meeting, Brian leaned in to whisper something across the table to a colleague. Jungkook's eyes immediately flicked to you. Your knuckles tightened around your pen, your jaw tensed, and your gaze dropped to the table until Brian leaned back again. By the time the meeting ended, Jungkook was sure of one thing. Whatever was going on, you weren't afraid of work. You were avoiding someone. And that someone was sitting in his office far too often for his liking. It was a late afternoon, and the office had slipped into that quiet lull before the evening rush of deadlines. Jungkook had been buried in contracts all day, the silence of his office broken only by the occasional ring of his phone. He pushed back from his desk, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Coffee, he muttered under his breath, deciding to grab one himself rather than call for it. On his way toward the break area, he heard voices, low but sharp enough to pull his attention. He stopped just short of the doorway, unseen, his body going still when he recognized yours. I told you I'm busy. You said, your voice steady but clipped. Oh, come on. Brian's tone was smooth but laced with a mocking edge. It's just a coffee. What? Are you too important now to even look at me? I don't want to have coffee with you. You said firmly. Please move. You're blocking the machine. Jungkook's brows furrowed. He shifted slightly so he could see you. Brian was standing too close, far too close for a professional setting, his hand resting on the counter, right beside you, cutting off your exit. Brian leaned in just a fraction. You know, it's funny. People think you are some perfect little employee, but we both know how quickly reputations can change. I could have you packing up that desk by Friday if I wanted to. You kept your chin up, and I could file a formal complaint if I wanted to. You shot back. His smile didn't falter, but it darkened. Complaints don't always work the way you think. Remember who handles most of the paperwork around here. Jungkook's jaw clenched. The words were quiet enough to be missed if he weren't this close, but he heard every syllable. I don't scare that easily, Brian. You said, your voice unwavering, even though your knuckles were tight around your coffee cup. So stop wasting both of our time. Brian stepped back half an inch, but only to tilt his head in mock amusement. You have got a sharp tongue. Careful with it. I would hate to see you choke on it when things turn against you. That was it. What did you just say to her? Brian froze, slowly turning around. You looked at him surprised too. Sir. No, don't sir me. I heard you loud and clear. He started walking forward, every step slow, deliberate, like a predator closing it on prey. It's a misunderstanding. Jungkook cut him off. His voice was sharp. A misunderstanding is spilling coffee on someone, threatening my employee, cornering her like some street thug. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a death wish. He swallowed hard. The entire office had gone silent. The tension was so thick you could almost hear your heartbeat. Jungkook took another step closer to him. You think you can intimidate her? That you can make her feel unsafe in my company? Let me be very clear, Brian. He leaned in slightly, voice low and lethal. The only person who won't find a job after today is you. Brian shifted nervously. Sir, you are fired, effective immediately. Security will escort you out in 60 seconds, and I will personally make sure your name is blacklisted in every corporate circle, every recruitment agency, every damn coffee shop that might think of hiring you. When people see your resume, they'll see one word: unhireable. Brian's face went pale. You can't. Oh, I can, and I will. Threatening her was the biggest mistake of your pathetic career. Now get out. Security appeared instantly. Jungkook must have signaled them without even looking away from Brian. Two guards flanked him, dragging him toward the elevator. As the doors closed, Jungkook turned to you, his tone softened, but his eyes still burned with protectiveness. Why didn't you tell me about this? You looked down without saying anything. He sighed. If anyone ever treats you like that again, you come straight to me. You don't have to fight your battles alone, understood? You managed a small nod, still a little shaken. Thank you. Good. Now go to my office. I'll be there in a minute. You didn't miss the way the rest of the employees looked down at their desks, avoiding his gaze entirely. Everyone had just witnessed exactly what it meant to cross Jungkook, and more importantly, what it meant when he decided to protect you. From that day on, things changed. You felt a renewed sense of safety at work, your confidence returning. Jungkook's presence was a constant, silent reassurance. Meetings were no longer tense, emails were sent on time, and the shadow of fear disappeared. Also, seeing your potential, Jungkook hired you as his new secretary. One evening, he called you into his office after hours, leaning casually against the desk. You handle yourself well today, he said, a rare smile tugging his lips. I couldn't be prouder. You laughed softly, the tension of weeks melting away. I didn't want to be afraid anymore, you confessed. He stepped closer, the distance closing until it felt impossible to breathe without him there. Then don't be, he murmured, fingers brushing your cheeks. Because I'll always stand for you. Always. And in that moment, the office didn't feel like a battlefield. It felt like a beginning of something fiercely protective, passionate, and entirely yours.